I closed my eyes again and heard the footsteps the third time. I
Wow.
opened my eyes and looked around, and I saw the footsteps, the impressions of them walking away from me.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Everyday Woo, the place where we talk about the magical side of life with everyday people. As human beings, we are all capable of having extraordinary, sometimes scary, out of the norm, quote unquote, woo experiences. And this show is an effort to help normalize what those experiences in our lives might be. So, on that note, I would like to welcome my guest today, Mary Jo St. Clair. Mary Jo is a mother. She has been a massage therapist. She is a Reiki master as well as, in general, a healer. And I'm sure she's many other things, which we will hopefully find out about today. And we will definitely find out about her many experiences with the woo. So, welcome, Mary Jo. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Good, good. I'm glad you're wonderful. That's not many people say that, so I hope that's true. I start out asking each guest what their definition of the woo is. So, if you would, what is your definition of the woo?
Mine is kind of more just general. It's like things out of the ordinary that you wouldn't expect. And and then of course the ones that are really stand out to you, that's something that you would think never in a million years would happen. But yeah.
Okay, so out of the, like, I like both of those categories. So, out of the ordinary that you wouldn't expect sounds like, as you actually have shared with me before, like everyday things that people would never think. So, if you would share what comes to you along those lines, that would be great.
Okay.
Any of those experiences that you'd like to share?
Okay. I do remember when I was young, there's a lot of things that happened that were just, I didn't say anything to my parents or anything because my mom, I came from a big family. So yeah, I really didn't get a whole lot of chance to have intimate conversations with mom or with dad. So, but I do remember at age 4, we were raised very strict Catholic, and mom had we had an eat-in kitchen. So in the eat-in kitchen, we had like a little triangular china cabinet in the corner, and I was always cold, and there was a little heat vent underneath there. So I I would lay on the floor and stick my feet underneath the china cabinet and get heated up. And I'm laying there and I'm thinking about all these things about the Catholic religion because that's the way that I was raised. And I'm thinking, this doesn't sound right.
Wow.
And it's like, okay. So, and I remember that at 4 years old doing that, so that later on, when I started, you know, I decided, okay, I'm going to read the Bible. So I'm reading the Bible and I'm like, that's not my God. That's not my God. So it was like just interesting things like that that would kind of, I would get like these, I wouldn't really ask a question, but I would get the information that would come to me. And so that was like the first thing, the when I was 4. And I remember too when I was younger than 10 years old, so I was probably about 8 because we were still in the old house. And it was a 2-story house, and I was upstairs, and I was getting ready to walk downstairs, and something rushed by me, and I looked, and it was a leprechaun.
Wow.
And it was like, okay. So I remember, I haven't mentioned this yet, but my mentor has been Penny Kelly. I've known her for over 30 plus years, and I've gone through all her intuition classes and I read all her books. And I remember her saying in one of the classes, because I asked her, well, what does one of the books of hers was about the elves of Lily Hill Farm. So I asked her what they look like. And she had said that a lot of times they will appear to you in the way that you think they would look.
Interesting.
So I thought, okay, that looked like a leprechaun.
Right, right.
So that was one experience. I had another experience when I was a teenager where um, I saw a large gray alien leaning over me. And it was like one of those things where you're in between wake and asleep, and you can't wake, you're trying to wake yourself up because you're scared, but you can't wake yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting.
Yeah.
So now I wouldn't call those like everyday woo things. Those were kind of a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've had other experiences as well. And some of the things that um, people might not know about me is that I had quintuplets. So I have six children total.
That's amazing. I almost included that in your introductions, and I'm glad you're sharing that. Yes.
And I had five at one time. So, and when I was pregnant, I ended up with a high risk doctor, and they're all going, they wanted to do this selective reduction, which, being Catholic, anything to do with abortion, of course, it took me forever to get pregnant. So thinking about abortion was simply not in my line of thoughts. And so they wanted to do this selective reduction where they injected this poison into three of the fetuses in order for at least two of them to survive. And then they couldn't even guarantee that the poison wasn't going to leak over to the other. So, me being goofy, which I've mentioned before, I'm a big Star Trek fan. So the only thing I could think of was that one show where they went back in time and accidentally got this major airplane air pilot and pulled him out and pulled him into the ship. Well, they had to go back in time and put him back. And they had to make, because they found out that if he was the one who did something really important
Right.
in the line for the space program. So I'm thinking, I'm not going to kill any of my children. What if they're meant to do something really important and it's not my decision?
Mm.
So anyway,
Hmm.
they're telling me about, oh, we think we should do this, blah, blah, blah. And I kept thinking, you know, I'm not going to do this. And I was really stressed out because, oh, you're going to die. The kids are going to die. The whole world's going to die. That's what it felt like they were saying.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I got this immediate calm that came over me. And it's like I knew everything was going to be okay.
Beautiful.
And when you talk about the everyday woo,
Yeah.
that's one of those things. Sometimes you will just get information that will come to you and you'll know. So that was one thing.
Even though the doctors, I think this is so important because I think this happens all the time in this world. The authorities are telling us one thing, and our gut and our intuition is saying something else, and you held your ground. And first of all, that's so hard to do, I believe. And then after you held your ground, this calm came over you. That's incredible. So I don't know if anything comes to mind to share more about that, but I just think that's so important.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. I just knew like I knew that God was telling me that everything was going to be okay. And I know everybody has a different viewpoint on God. Some people call him creator, some people call him source. Um, Penny calls it the God soup.
Yep. Yep.
So, but yeah, we're all connected up there. So it's just I just knew. I don't know how to explain it. And it was this immense peace that came over me that I knew everything was going to be okay.
Yes.
So, and I've had that come happen one other time with the children. I was really, for some reason, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety. I'd be fine all day, and then I'd get to bed and I could not sleep. I just couldn't sleep.
Okay.
And I would go and grab one of the babies and bring it in bed and just hold it to me, and it just made me feel better and everything.
Yeah.
And then one night I didn't do that. I was just sitting there trying to figure out, well, what's going on here? And another Star Trek one
Great.
with Captain Kirk when he went into the Nexus. I don't know if you remember that movie where he went into the Nexus and Picard was in that one too.
Oh, wow. I've seen them. So, but keep going.
Okay, so anyway, I'm sitting there and it's like another thing. It was just another one. It was like I went into the Nexus. There was so much peace, so much love, and I knew everything was going to be okay. And it was like I found out that I was low on thyroid and that's what was causing the anxiety issues.
That makes sense. Mhm.
Yeah.
Out. Yeah.
So it was so if anybody needed to know that sometimes if you have anxiety, it
Yeah.
could be low thyroid.
Yeah. But so what's interesting to me is in both of these experiences with the doctors, you held your ground even though they were catastrophizing. And then afterwards, you had that calm.
Mhm.
And, with your children, you're having the fear and you go and you hold on to them and you're helping yourself through these moments and then you get the support, let's say.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think that's, first of all, it's beautiful that the support came, and I think it's important for all of us to just trust, like, no, 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 they're telling me this, but that's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about it that way, but there's that moment when you know that whatever somebody's telling you is not necessarily true.
That's
And
right.
you have to listen to your heart.
Absolutely.
And there's other things we could say about that as well.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
Come
it's
to mind.
a lot of times when people talk to you, and there was this group called Access Consciousness, and I learned this through them. The Access Consciousness, they said that you can listen to a statement, and part of that statement can be true, and part of it can be false.
Hmm.
So a lot of people are not paying attention, and they either hear the true thing and think the whole thing is true, or they hear the false thing and think the whole thing is false. So
Wow.
that's the way people can trick you.
I think that's a really important piece of awareness for everybody. Like we need to be very discerning. And
Right.
so when you hear a chunk of news, a story from a neighbor or anyone, you like parse it out, be discerning.
Yeah. That is how people manipulate you. And if you're dealing with people that are, you know, maybe you're stuck with a narcissist in your life, or maybe you're stuck with somebody that, has other things that they do to manipulate people. That's a good way. Take a look at everything that they're saying and see how you feel about each one of those pieces.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So,
And so, we're talking about these woo experiences, but it comes around to your own center, your own sense, your own intuition, your heart, your gut, and following that.
yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so go ahead. What were you going to say? You
I
go.
was going to say the other experience that really kind of got me, and I know it's probably not as exciting as what experiences some people have, but I was at Penny Kelly's farm. We
Mhm.
were doing the intuition classes, and I had taken a walk up behind the vineyard, and she had one of those benches where you could sit, and I was up there meditating. And so I had my eyes closed, and I heard footsteps. And the reason how I met Penny Kelly was through her book, The Elves of Lily Hill Farm.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
so I thought, I wonder if it's the elves. So I opened my eyes and looked around, and I didn't see anything. So I closed my eyes and meditated for a few more minutes, and then I heard the footsteps again. And I said, I know you're there. I would love to see you.
Oh,
And I remember Penny saying that you have to raise your frequency high enough to see other beings.
okay.
I don't quote me on that, but I think that's what she said.
It makes sense. Okay.
So
Hmm.
anyway, I opened my eyes and the second time and I didn't see anything. So I closed my eyes again and heard the footsteps the third time. I
Wow.
opened my eyes and looked around and I saw the footsteps, the impressions of them walking away from me. So that was an experience.
Wow. Like what was on the ground? Like was it grass and you
It
saw
was
something
grass. It
eating?
was grass there. So
Wow.
you could see the impressions right in the grass.
Now to me, that's just magical. That's the magical side of life. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other things too, just the natural woo things that one of the things that Penny had taught me in the classes was that um, ask a question, and the first thing that pops in your head is the answer. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's got to be quick. If there's like a hesitation or something, it could be your ego giving you that answer. And I've gotten to the point where I can hear an ego question or an ego answer or a conscious one. So I've worked on that a lot. The other thing that had slowed my progress down in reaching higher consciousness was the thought that, and I didn't learn until years later, I thought that I was going to experience it the way everybody else did.
Interesting.
And you don't. Everybody saying the word body is different. So, where some people might be clairaudient and hear things, some people might be clairsentient and feel things, other people are clairvoyant and see things. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things, and you can develop the other ones if you don't have them right now, and that's I'm trying to work on some of that. I'm really good at visualization. That's one of those things. And Penny has also Penny, sorry. She says, which is really important, that everything starts with your imagination.
Ah, yeah.
And think about it. Look at what they're doing to the children, putting them in classrooms, making them sit in a seat and not allowing them to do anything. That is just,
Suppressing
you wonder why. I'm sorry?
suppressing the imagination.
Yes.
Yeah.
You wonder why our kids are so focused on all the computers and stuff.
Right.
So we really need to encourage imagination because that's where consciousness starts.
Beautiful. That's a
So,
lovely point. I'm glad you're sharing that. I want to ask you, you said you now can discern between ego versus consciousness. Um, can you share if you know, maybe not. Either way is fine. How did you learn how to discern? And maybe what is the difference in feeling in anything? How can we tell? Give us a little lesson, a little teaching.
I guess I just got to the point where I could, oh, that's your ego. Because it was like, it was, how would you say, like tweaked away a little bit or something where it felt like there was a pull on it. I don't know how to explain. I know that consciousness kind of works best if you don't have a negative or a positive pull. So if you're neutral, you're more open to receive.
Okay,
So I guess maybe it felt like it had a pull on it.
great. That's a great description. And a negative pull on it, or even you're saying, oh, it could be a positive pull also
Yeah, correct.
from your ego. Yeah.
You want to keep yourself neutral
Hmm.
so that you're open to all ideas because if you're only open to positive ideas, you're going to miss half the ideas
Yes.
or
Okay.
half the information.
So I apologize if I'm taxing you too much here, but how does one stay neutral? How do we learn to do that?
Practice. That's the only thing I can say is practice because I remember when I was raising the kids and it was really hard not to. Okay, I'm half Italian, so I have a little bit of.
I love it. Mhm.
So, I just got to the point where, I got some parenting tips from Penny,
Sure. Mhm.
and she always talks about planting the seed and those kind of things. And I got to thinking, okay, you can't just get mad and fly off the handle
Mm.
like a lot of parents do.
Mhm.
You have to hesitate for a second collect your composure, and then deal with the children. So I don't know where I was going with this. What were you, what was your question, Amy?
Well, no, that's fantastic because I asked you to share how you learned to stay neutral. And
Oh, okay, yeah.
you're saying, correct me if I get this wrong as I reflect it back, but I think you're saying parenting helped you learn that
Right.
because as you were raising your children, you had to kind of take a pause. Now, you didn't call it that. You said to hesitate. In therapy, I would say take a pause, right?
Right.
And then you collected yourself. So
Hmm.
whatever you just got triggered into, whatever emotion just, you just took that pause, you collected yourself, and then you dealt with your kids.
Right. And you could offer them, you could, it gives you a chance to stop and take a look at where the other person is coming from. So this works with adult relationships as well. Um, try to think about, well, where are they coming from when they said that to you that triggered you?
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. So I don't know that this is accurate, but it feels like you're talking a little bit about not taking things personally. So when we get activated or triggered and we can go through these steps that you just shared, that brings us into a space of empathy or the ability to shift our perspective to
mhm,
see from the other person's point of view. And I think you're saying maybe we're connecting the dots, maybe it's a false story. You tell me that this practice can bring you into a neutrality, which can then kind of help with discerning what is coming from your intuition and what's coming from your ego.
correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for those dots. That's beautiful. I like when we can share how to actually do something or help ourselves and
Mhm.
so that was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of things I do that I started them years ago, and I guess it's because I've been practicing it so long, it's like more natural to me.
Hmm.
It wasn't easy in the beginning, believe me, because, like I said, that Italian little Spitfire.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but yeah, got to the point where just after thinking about the elves of the Lily Hill Farm and that kind of stuff, and thinking about all the different creations that are out there, I just decided to kind of take a step back and take a look at how am I interacting with everything.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
so there's a lot of things I do that a lot of people don't do. Like I talk to Mother Earth. I'm a gardener. I love that. I talk to the wind. On a day that's really hot and I'm outside, I'll say, okay, it's a little bit warm. Can you send me a breeze? And darned if it doesn't send me the breeze. If you talk to all the elements, they are waiting for you to talk to them. I talked to the sun. I said, can you hide behind that cloud for a minute?
Wow. Yeah,
I talked to the rain. Can you stop raining so I can get in the building without an umbrella?
beautiful.
So I do things like that. I talk to animals, I talk to trees, I talk to just about anything. Spiders, yeah, they're dead. Sorry. There's only so
Okay, I understand.
I know they're other people's favorites, and like I said, Penny's been my mentor for 30 some years. And so I asked her, I said, I'm killing spiders. I just can't deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, can I go and say, this is my area. If you come into this area, you're dead. And she said, of course, you can put boundaries.
Yeah.
And so that's usually what I do. Sometimes I will pick them up and carry them out, but I'm just not there. I can do snakes. I can't do
Wow.
spiders.
I think I would be the opposite. Yeah. Wow. So
Oh,
I keep picturing you as a child under your china cabinet at the heating vent.
okay.
And it comes to you and you're thinking about religion and there's a knowing that comes to you. No, that's not true. And and here you are talking to the elements and somehow I'm I'm always happy to be wrong. So you just tell me. But somehow I think those two things are, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
The information that comes to you, you said earlier, you know that you know that you know.
Right. And I left the Catholic Church when I was in my 30s. And it was like, I ended up being the black sheep of the family for leaving the Catholic Church. So, and I lost a lot of friends.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So
That's so
it,
hard.
it is hard, but you know what? I knew what was right for me. And I guess that's another point I would like to make. So many times, and like I said, I knew like I knew like I knew. I took a step back and let people use me or treat me a certain way and everything. And you'll get to the point with your consciousness where you'll realize I'm betraying myself. And you get to that point where and unfortunately, it took me till my 50s and 60s to get to that point. But you find out that I can no longer do this. I
Yeah,
have to do what is right and most healthy for me without being selfish. So those are the things that consciousness can give you is by looking at all those things. I talk to my body. I ask my body, what do you need? What kind of food do you want to eat? And
beautiful.
I think the other thing too is I don't think people realize that we are really more psychic than we think. And we can walk by somebody and you can be happy as a lark, as the old saying is, and walk by somebody and all of a sudden get so depressed. You have to realize that's not yours. You picked that up from the person you walked by.
Beautiful. Hmm.
So there's things like that. That's why
That's why what? Finish that thought.
I'm not quite sure where I was going to go with it because I switched to another thought that was saying
Yeah.
that you really need to honor your emotions. I hear so many people who just lost a spouse or something and they're grieving and they're still grieving 3 or 4 years later. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You need to honor yourself and feel those feelings and then if you can set them aside and go out and live your life.
Beautiful.
My ex-husband passed away a couple months ago, and we'd been friends. We had a amicable divorce. We've been divorced for 16 years, and I was really sad.
Yeah.
And I knew I can't say online. I knew why he left, but
Hmm.
anyway, I went and talked to him, and I thanked him and for everything that he had done, and I appreciated him, and it was sad that he had to leave, and. Um, I remember Penny telling me that he had told her, "Thank God it's over." He was
Wow.
he was depressed his whole life, and he didn't want to do anything to fix it. He tried a couple things, and like a lot of people think that, you think that, oh, somebody says that vitamin C is good for you. I'll take one and I'll be fixed for the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
No, you need to take it so that you get the loading dose in your body and take it long enough so that your body recognizes it. And then you have to pulse your vitamins, which means take so many days off and so many days on.
Right.
But they think that this pill is going to be a miracle pill if they only take it once
Mhm.
and say that they don't give it the extra chance.
Right.
And he was one of those ones that didn't want to give it the extra chance.
Yeah.
So he was depressed and I felt for him and everything, but I it was just, you do what you can do. And that was speaking of which, I had a message come to me about that. You can get messages everywhere. You can get them from a song, you can get them from a movie, you can get them from a billboard you're driving by, you can get them from a book that you're reading. And we were at that point. Um, we were married 32 years, and we were at the point, and I went to a class that was meet your animal, whatever. What do they call those
Good
animals?
animal?
I'm sorry.
Your spirit
Yeah,
animal?
your spirit animal or your guardian animal or whatever. So I went to this class and I'm doing the whole shamanic thing where you go through the cave, you go here, you go there, you meet different things, you ask them if it's your spirit animal, and none of them did. And I got out of the cave and I was out on a beach, palm trees everywhere, looked down and there's a starfish. I said, let me guess, you're my spirit. I mean, who else would get a starfish? Me.
Miracle. I love that story. Let me guess.
And so I asked what information the starfish had for me, and it said that my ex was just staying with me because it was the right thing to do.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So leaving that class,
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to the music on the radio, and
Okay.
a song comes on, and it's one of the old Jefferson airplane, starship, whatever you want to call it. When the truth is found to be lies, and all the joy within you dies.
Wow.
Don't you want somebody to love?
Wow.
And that was it. I it took me 3 times, but I eventually I separated from him 3 times and I eventually went through.
That was my question. So the shamanic journey and the spirit animal and the starfish talking to you and then the song
Yeah.
all happened while you were still married, and you took those signs, those signals, those messages to help you in your life.
Yes, it was to make the decision. I had been thinking about the divorce. I lasted in the marriage 10 years more than I should have.
Wow.
And I did that for my kids. I
Yes.
waited until they graduated high school and everything. And he was a good guy. He was a good provider. We were just, our paths were diverging, and I was growing, and he had no interest in growing.
Yeah.
So,
And there
and
you,
we were still friends. We were close friends. I could tell him anything.
beautiful. I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, that's an example of betrayal of the self,
Yes.
staying with him when you keep getting the information of, oh, this might not be right. I'm going this way. He's not. And then I always say it this way, as you love yourself a little bit more and a little bit more and a
Yeah.
little bit more, you can follow the path that is your path and stop betraying yourself, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, I know I keep talking here, but there was other things that had happened too. I've gotten messages. Strangers will walk up to me
Mhm.
and out of the blue and give me a message. I had decided to go to massage school
Mhm.
and I was scared to death because my place of employment was asking me to put my resignation in and because the classes were during the week. But the darn laptop was attached to my hip and I could have worked at any time of the day. And so I had to put my resignation in.
Wow.
And I had 3 people while I was going to school come up to me and tell me that I was being protected.
Okay. So how did that inform you that you were going to be okay, even though you had to quit your job, or protected in
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah, that financially I was going to be okay because that's what I was worried about was the finances. And then I had another one. I was down in Florida visiting my sister Joyce. And it was the day that I was driving back to Tennessee. And we decided they decided to go out to breakfast with me. We went to Waffle House, because it was right there at the exit.
Okay.
And so we drove in, and this girl comes driving in like a bat out of hell. That's the only way that you can say. She just swooped in, parked, ran up to the door of Waffle House, and then stood there and waited and held the door open for Joyce and Mac and me to walk through the door. I thought,
Yeah.
okay. I thought, okay, she's either wacky, out of her mind, or something. So we went to the left and sat down. She went to the right, and then she got closer and
Ooh.
she moved closer.
Ooh.
And then she stood right at the end of the booth next to me and said, can I sit down? I have something to tell you.
Oh my God.
And I said, okay. I think my sister was freaking out, but I said, okay, because I'm used to it. So
Yes.
I scoot over and she sits down and she turns to me and she says, I've been told to tell you that you need to get your heart checked. And I said, I had just broken up with a guy that I was seeing for a couple months. And I said, I said, my heart is just sad because I just broke up.
Okay.
And she said, no, I've been told to tell you you need to get your heart checked.
Wow.
So here I am getting ready to get on the road and drive 10 to 12 hours home. And somebody told me I needed to have my heart checked.
What did you do?
I kept, I kept calming myself down.
Mhm.
And I got home and then I tried to get into a doctor. Well, the laws, all the rules have changed and nobody would see me until I saw this other doctor before I went and saw him. And my daughter was a nurse at that time.
Good.
And so I was really frustrated. I had an appointment. I get to the appointment. They wouldn't take me because I didn't fill out the paperwork prior to the appointment. So I was all stressed out, went out to dinner with a friend, and was having chest pains, which I
You were having chest
I
pains.
was having chest pains.
Okay.
So I said to my friend, I need to call my daughter. And so Elizabeth came over and got me and took me to the hospital,
Mhm.
and I was fine. And then I got in the darn hospital, and they wouldn't let me see my doctor. I had a cardiologist from years ago. They send you to a periodically to have your heart checked out, as you get older.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me see my doctor. 2 days later, I'm in emergency room. They finally let me see the cardiologist.
Wow.
So, and he says, there's 1 in 100 million or 1 in 100,000 chance of you needing a stent put in. And I'm thinking, I have quintuplets, which at that time was 1 in 100 million of having
Oh
quintuplets.
my God.
And I said, do the stent. And he got in and there was an 80% blockage.
Wow.
And I've been fine ever since.
We're all so glad. That's amazing.
And now I do all the things that Penny says, like the purge and the liver
Yeah.
flush, and that helps take care of all that.
Very good. And what's coming to me as you're sharing these last few bits here is how much in this crazy world that we live in, with, as we were talking earlier in the beginning about the doctors catastrophizing and authorities and
Yeah.
being manipulated, and in this very crazy world that we live in, I think you seem to be an example, and I think we all need this, that as you listen to the signs, as you listen to your intuition, as you pick up on the messages, as you talk to the elements, you are helping. Speaking of bugs, I have a little bug. Um, sorry. Um, you are basically helping yourself to stay alive by
Hmm.
using the skills and the tools of your intuition and your inner guidance. And it seems to me that that's becoming more and more important because the world is getting more and more crazy. Would you agree?
I agree. And I think the other thing too is by me saying the different things that have happened to me,
Mhm.
I think it helps people to understand that you're not recognizing the little things that you're actually using your consciousness for. And they're there. And like you said, those signs will help you with your life. They will help you make decisions,
Yes,
etc.
beautiful. Really, really great. Now, that to me feels like a good ending point, but I can't let go of something. So I'm going to ask you one more question and we'll see where it goes. You know, as people have woo experiences, especially like for the first time, um, first of all, in your childhood, you had a bunch of experiences that I think you didn't tell anybody about. You didn't tell anybody about the leprechaun, right?
No.
Okay. So as people are having these woo experiences, let's say in adulthood, like for the first time, if you do share, maybe with your partner or with a really good friend, we can get ostracized. We can get looked at like we're crazy. You mentioned your experience with the Catholic Church, and you became the black sheep of your family, and you lost friends. And so I think I just wanted to ask, and even though it wasn't through the woo, but that experience of people like just going away, I think that happens when we have woo experiences for the first time. And I kind of wanted to ask, how did you help yourself through that? I hope all of that made sense. Sorry, I talked so long.
No, no problem. And I guess a lot of this stuff came from the intuition classes because then it kind of makes you realize that um when things are not going, maybe they're not supposed to go right now. When friends leave your life, maybe those friends are supposed to be out of your life right now. Things like that. And I mean, that's kind of what, taking the intuition classes helped me to learn a bunch of different things like that. It's just sometimes things are meant to be.
Mhm.
Can you change them? Yes. And it's like even if you go and have a psychic reading, okay? You can walk out of that office, have a different thought in your head that could change that whole reading. You don't even have to act on that thought. It would be your change in consciousness with that thought could change the reading that you just had.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of things, and I guess the thing that I would like to get across to people is you were talking about discerning. I'm thinking more like just be open to was that a message? Things like that.
Beautiful.
Because I'll tell you, this last year has been crazy with all the different things that have been happening and the feelings, and just recognizing, okay, I can't do that because that is going to betray myself. How can I handle this without being selfish? And sometimes you do have responsibilities to family members, and they're there all the time. So you have to figure out how to handle those relationships.
Yeah,
So, and still be true to yourself.
yeah. And that can be very, very challenging sometimes, but it is so important.
I was asked to send healing, okay, to one of my friends,
Mhm.
and her brother was not doing well. And so, I'm a Reiki master, like you said, and so I usually call upon Reiki, but I don't do it like the rigorous rules for Reiki. So I just decided to send, healing, and I shaped it with the one symbol that I use from Reiki, and I always ask God, Goddess, and universe that, hey, if this is the wrong symbol, use whatever healing that they need.
Beautiful.
Okay. And so I was shaping it into a pyramid to go around him because he was going in for surgery.
Oh, wow.
And it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. Usually I see like a little triangle. This thing went into a 3D pyramid made of sand that you would see like in Egypt or something. And it just started building the sand, building it straight up.
Wow.
And then I remember that she said he was really super weak and they didn't think that he was going to make it. So
No.
I said, okay, we need to send him some. First I said energy, and then I said, no, he needs to have strength. And it turned into this blue cylinder thing with green stuff coming out of it. And I kind of just both the pyramid and the cylinder, I just kind of blew it towards the person for healing. And he did amazing. We almost lost him again, and I sent him some more healing, and we
Incredible.
almost lost him again. But yesterday, I
Yeah.
was asked to
Yes.
send healing to a person, a friend of Penny's, and it was like,
Oh.
okay, all right. She said, do your special healing thing, and I'm
Oh,
thinking,
cool.
okay, I guess I got this special healing thing.
I think you do.
Well, I've used healing and I've done the tuning forks and I've put hands on and stuff on people in massage and they've always walked out without pain. So
It's incredible.
anyway, but I said, okay. And so I'm envisioning it. I'm going through, I talked to God, Goddess, Universe. I talked to him. I talked to his guardian angels, his guides, and mine as well. And it said, okay. I said, okay, do you want to live? And
Oh,
the person said, I'm really tired. He didn't give me a yes or a no answer.
okay.
So I
Wow.
was kind of worried.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, God got us universe. Is this his time? And they said, no, he's got more things to do.
Okay. Wow.
So, anyway, I started building it and I was just going to do a pyramid and it didn't build. All of a sudden, this huge pyramid started coming up out of the earth. It was like an earthquake and I was feeling the shaking as it was coming up out of the earth surrounding his house. I don't even know what his house looks like.
Wow.
But it was this huge pyramid. And then all of a sudden, um, I said, okay, well, how do I send healing? And I was trying to think of the different ways of healing. I didn't want it to break up the thing.
Yeah.
I wanted it to disintegrate it. I thought, well, should I send microbes? Like they do with the Anastasia Ringing Cedar series. I don't know if you've read those books.
Not read it. I should, but I haven't.
Oh, the Ringing Cedars of Russia. There's a series of like 9, 10 books.
Mhm.
And Anastasia is this Siberian recluse, and she tells you that the guy that writes it tells her story.
Yeah.
So anyway, the pyramid is there. Um, then all of a sudden, I'm thinking about this. Well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to disintegrate it without any particles of the sickness being left in the body?
Wow.
And I'm trying to think about, and I'm saying, okay, send whatever he needs. And all of a sudden, the very top point of the pyramid lit up and it flashed to the left and it flashed to the right. And I knew that it was connected to two other pyramids and that it was sending healing through that pyramid.
Wow. Okay. Now,
I'm sorry.
no, don't be sorry. This is incredible. So thank you for sharing all of this. And so first of all, I want to ask, how did that person, how is the person?
I don't know. I haven't had contact with them.
And you just actually just did this? You were
I
just,
did it last night.
oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. So this brings to mind a couple of things that I hope it's okay if we chat about this real quick before we sign off here. So, you've mentioned it a couple of times, and maybe via Penny, or maybe it's just from you. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You've mentioned it that it's important to use your imagination.
Hmm.
Um, and as well, be open, feel your feelings. And so all of these things that you just experienced, that you just shared, it comes to me, I have no idea, but it comes to me that for people who think this is like way too woo-woo, right? Like,
Hmm.
I believe that these things really do, these abilities start in our imagination. And so you maybe as a kid visualizing stuff, like maybe you did make stuff up as a kid, but I'm recalling Deb Furcher's episode. She talked a lot about, needing, for her personally, her personality, she needed validation.
Hmm.
So as you are experiencing these things, and if you allow your imagination, if you allow for all these fantastical things, and then you get validation,
Yes.
well, this is not just your imagination.
It does help if you have validation. So like if I hear a couple days from now that it healed him or he's much better, then that would be some validation. Like the first person, he's much better. He's home now. But the other thing too is you have to remember with healing, which I'm sure you probably do know, the person has to want to heal.
Right.
And you could send as much healing as you want to a person, but if they don't believe that they're going to be healed, they're not going to be healed.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are people out there, I want to strangle them. Okay. I just admit it, who think that, oh, God wants me to be in this pain. God, this is my service to the world to handle this pain. And I'm thinking, that's not God. That's the religious belief that they've plunked on you. I'm sorry.
No, yes. Yeah.
I think God wants everybody to be happy and to be healthy and to because he experiences life through us.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, so I mean, that's kind of my viewpoint. I mean, you can send love to a person. I had this one person, I had taken her place while she was off on pregnancy, on medical on leave. And when she came back, they brought me back again to fill in. And then she thought I was going to take her job.
Oh,
So she made my life miserable.
yes.
And so what I did is when I remembered, the days that I remembered, I sent love to her and she didn't bother me that day.
That's
The
fantastic.
days that I forgot were the days that she tried to discredit me in front of upper management.
Yes. I won't share the story, but I've had experience with that. I truly believe that that's so powerful
Yeah.
and such a simple thing, you know? Send somebody some love and see what happens.
Hmm.
That's beautiful.
It's really funny too. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just somebody, I was just thinking about them, didn't have the time to call. They called me 5 minutes later. But things like that happen. You could send that message out not knowing you're sending it, and the person will call you. And you can practice with other people too. I know some people that have tried to practice consciousness, take like decks of cards, and
Mhm.
either with another person in another room or at a different house say, okay, is it red or black?
Yeah, yeah.
Or is it, what number is it? That kind of thing. So you can practice little things like that.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'm going to ask you one more question. The whole time we've been talking about this, but I guess I would ask for you to say what's the purpose? What's the reason to practice to work with your consciousness and your intuition? Why bother?
Okay, I'm going to be selfish.
Okay.
I want the heads up on how something might go. So if I want to look ahead and do a little visualization as to what could possibly happen, I'll be prepared when it if it does happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with being selfish in that way.
Well, I mean, you could do it. Well, I want to see if I'm going to win the lottery. I haven't won the lottery yet.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what I'm saying, yeah, I think it's important because it helps you to deal with other situations.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and if I may add, I think it's just a richer, deeper way to live our lives. There's just so much more than the doctors catastrophizing and religion
Yeah.
doctrines of religion, So, okay.
And you can look too, as when you do look ahead, maybe you don't like what you saw, you could go and change the events. That's the whole purpose of like when Penny does her look-sees. It's so you can take a look ahead. If you don't like something, make some changes.
Beautiful.
The biggest thing is make changes in your own life to be happy. Do the things that bring you joy. Start a community.
Absolutely. And I would say, especially not only in general, but especially in really challenging times like we're living through now, find some joy, create something that makes you happy. It's very helpful.
And don't live in fear. Okay, so if you think something's going to happen because you took a look ahead,
Yeah,
you can either plan for it. If you don't have the money to plan for it, at least you're aware.
that's right.
And you can ask, okay, what can I do instead?
Beautiful.
And just don't expect the answer right then. The answer might come a couple days later.
Mhm.
So just put the questions out there. Keep asking questions.
Beautiful. And be aware of and look for the answers.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, on that note, I want to thank you very, very much, Mary Jo. You've shared so much. I'm not even gonna, go through the list. There's so much, except, and I am gonna go through the list. Like just the whole idea of being open and feeling your feelings and not betraying yourself. That just resonates with me so strongly. I just wanted to repeat that. But there's this whole episode is so rich with some teachings, experiences, just so much for people to think about and maybe do a little bit of a deep dive into and do some really beautiful learning. So thank you very, very much for being here. And thank you everyone for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Everyday Woo. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amy.